Hey guys, this is Dan from the Corporate Thief Beats. You're listening to the Mixtape Marketing Podcast. This is episode 14. I'm very pleased to introduce TJ Bear from mindovermohawk.com. TJ is a brand and web designer for music artists, music industry professionals, and small business at Mind Over Mohawk. TJ is also an independent hip-hop artist and a self-proclaimed zombie killer under the alias Saint Warhead. You can follow him both on at Mind Over Mohawk and at Saint Warhead on Twitter. TJ, it's great to have you on the show. Maybe you could just give the audience a brief description and what you do for artists. Okay?
Sure. Sounds great, man. So this is always the funnest question to try and answer what I do, because it's gotten to the point where I do a lot of things. I try to consider myself, I had to think of an umbrella term to call it. Musicpreneur is one that I see tossed around the internet a lot, kind of combining entrepreneur and a music industry career. But essentially, I'm an independent artist myself. And I'm also, like you said, I'm a brand and web designer for other independent artists and professionals that work in the music industry and small businesses. I do under that umbrella, which is my freelance company, Mine Under Mohawk. I do a lot of different things, mostly brand and web design, but I also do social media design campaigns, album release design campaigns. I do copywriting, where I provide content for websites and blogs. I do consultation services, where I do either quick advice sessions or strategic planning sessions, mostly with artists, but sometimes with other industry professionals or small businesses as well. So that's kind of just a real brief overview of most of the things I do.
Excellent. The reason why I brought TJ on today's podcast is because I found an article on Music Think Tank, and it's directly related to his articles on his website at undermohawk.com, and it's to do with buying and selling rap features. I'm really excited to talk about this topic because it's something that I'm not familiar with, but I'd love to introduce it to the audience. And you say at the start of when you're talking about this topic, as a rule of thumb, that every situation is unique and that everyone's situation is not the same. So there's different mediums for each different artist. Maybe we want to talk about that not everyone can get the bullet point answers that they're looking for. Maybe you can talk about that kind of stuff.
Sure. Especially when it comes to the music industry, there's a million things that are working and not working for different people at all times. There's not really one narrow strategy that applies to every situation and every artist that's going to work. So it's really important to weigh out the different types of options you have and figure out what specific strategy works best for your own career.
Mm-hmm. Because you say that, when people are always kind of looking for answers, maybe I've got 5,000 Facebook fans or 10,000 Twitter fans. Should I start charging for rap features now? You talk about maybe there's a time and a place that you should wait before you actually do that. Maybe getting your branding right first. And this is what you do. Maybe you could just talk about the importance of having a brand before you actually get out there and start doing stuff like this. Maybe we just talk about actually buying rap features first, and then we can talk about selling rap features after. Is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think branding is one of the most important foundational steps in an artist's career that seems to get neglected. A lot of times artists will worry about getting content and music out there and networking long before they really have their branding solidified and strategy in place. And I think that's a mistake that a lot of artists make, and I think it's something that slows a lot of artists down. Even once you have your branding could end up changing over time. It won't necessarily be the same as it is now 3 years from now. It goes through a constant refinement process where I don't even like the word changing, because your core will usually stay the same, but it's constantly getting better. But you really want to make sure you have that foundational stuff in place. You have a good social media presence, you have good artwork, you have good quality photos, you have a logo, you have a website, you have all this foundational stuff that all together creates a professional image, and an image that stands out against the oversaturated sea of artists who don't have that. Because there's hip hop especially is a very saturated industry, especially at the independent level. And so, with there being a quadrillion competitors trying to land the same resources and connections that you are, you really want to make sure you don't half-ass this step, because it's really what's going to make you stand out. And then when you're ready to start networking the right connections, playing shows, releasing music, charging for features, all that stuff will move so much more fluidly, and will move a lot faster if you take care of the foundational stuff beforehand and not afterwards.
I love the point that we're actually on right at the minute, and I tend to ask a lot of kind of people that come on the show. Do you think that artists are kind of relying on the free resources that are online too much? Like, oh, I have a Facebook page. No, I don't need a website. I don't need to pay that $9 a month. Do you think too many artists are relying on social media channels that might not be here, like in a couple of years? Like, we all know. Even Sean Parker said that Facebook or MySpace should have never failed. It had everything. It had music and a social network. And yet, where is MySpace now? I haven't touched MySpace in a while. Do you think a lot of artists are just kind of relying too much on the free stuff and addicted to that kind of free thing, and that they're not going like, I actually do need to start an email list. I actually do need to set up my own website and build my own connection. Like, what do you think about that?
Absolutely, especially in regards to social media. Like you said, MySpace, which used to be a huge player for independent artists a decade ago, is pretty much extinct. Facebook is constantly reducing the organic reach of pages for artists. SoundCloud has really popped up on the landscape as a really good tool. And so there's it's really important to be leveraging social media, but it's also just as important to understand that you can't predict where that landscape is going to go. And so your social media presence should serve as a tool to funnel traffic, your audience, your visitors, your users, back to something that you control, like your own website, your email list, these mediums and these platforms that you control the future of, and that no one can take away from you. Because the last thing you want is to spend 5 years building up 20,000 likes on a Facebook page, and then in 2017 Facebook doesn't exist anymore, and then you don't have access to that audience that you worked so hard to build.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those free tools should definitely be leveraged, and you should always try to figure out which free tools are the best for you and which ones add the most value for you. But when it comes to social media, social media should be used to funnel traffic back to a platform that you control, instead of leaving the control on that platform.
Excellent answer. You say that we'll get back to the topic of buying rap features. You say that you always facepalm when a rapper refuses to pay or give some kind of think that they're actually bigger than to pay for rap features. What do you think about artists that are like that, and what would you say to people that think, oh, maybe I'm a good rapper, I don't need to pay for features or something like that?
Well, first off, if you come to the conclusion after really analyzing all of your options and what's best for your own strategy and your own career, and you've come to the conclusion that you don't think buying features from other artists is something you want to include in your strategy, that's fine. And I'm not even saying that that's the wrong decision to make. I'm just saying that that's not a universal rule that should apply to all careers. And because you're choosing not to buy features from other artists, that doesn't give you some sort of competitive or strategic advantage by itself. There has to be a reasoning behind that applies to your situation specifically. Because when you adopt this sort of closed-minded strategy that you're unwilling to change, you might miss an opportunity that could be really big for your career.
Mm-hmm. So what are the actual benefits of actually getting people to feature on your records? What do you think the benefits are? So if I was to reach out to some artists to get features on a song, what would the benefits be?
Well, the the obvious benefit when it comes to collaborating with other artists, whether there's payment involved or not, is um, sharing exposure to your audiences and your fan base. You're
Mm-hmm.
When you collaborate with another artist, they're pretty much co-signing you as an artist, and they're giving you access to their fan base, because people, especially music fans nowadays, are cluttered with so many decisions that it's really hard to get a fan, even someone that would be a fan of your music, to give it a chance unless there's some trust point that reaches the introduction. So it could be word of mouth from a friend that they know that is talking about you that makes them want to check you out, or it could be an artist that they're already a fan of collaborating with you that bridges that trust barrier, or their filters they use to filter out everything else and decide what stuff they want to give their time and attention to.
Mm-hmm. What kind of research would you give to? Would you suggest to artists before they start spending money on features? What kind of research should they be doing? Let's say if they said, "Oh, this guy is selling rap verses, rap features." What kind of research do you think artists should go like? Wait a minute, I should actually just think about this before I actually pay this amount of money. It's not that I'm not willing, I just don't want to get ripped off. And what kind of ways do you think an artist should be wise to protect themselves?
Exactly. When it comes to investing money in your career, whether it's for buying a feature or buying onto a tour or spending money on recording time, you always want to make sure that you are spending your money on where you think you're going to get the best return, whether that's immediate financial return or long-term exposure. You just want to be very strategic and calculated about where you invest your money, to make sure that you're getting the best impact out of it. So when it comes to investing in a feature from an artist, you would want to make sure you know what rate other artists have paid for that feature in the past. So five other artists, what did they pay that artist for a feature? You would want to know. You would want to take maybe a look at five similar artists to the size of that artist and their fan base and their exposure and what they can provide, and figure out what their rates are and compare them against similar artists. So when it comes to buying a feature, especially if you're going for a much more established artist, you want to target artists that have the type of fan base that's going to be attracted to your music. You want to figure out who has purchased features from those artists in the past, and what similar artists are charging and offering, because you never know, you might be able to get a feature from an artist just as big for a lot less, and they'll promote the song more. They'll do more. Like you really want to weigh out your options so you can figure out what's best for you and what's going to have the most impact. And you want to know if people have had a bad experience buying a feature from that artist before. Those kind of things you really want to be weighing out.
Can I ask you a question? That this is something I'm interested. Do you know when let's say an artist, maybe it comes back to what we said at the very start of the show, where every situation is different. But is this when, let's say, if an artist buys a feature off of a well-known artist, well, somewhat well-known, are they selling them the exclusive rights to that song, or is there still royalties on after they've paid for that feature, or it doesn't matter? Sometimes it could be royalties, sometimes it's done for free, and then, or is it different in every situation? I'm just curious about my situation.
It's different in every situation. When you're buying a feature from a more established artist, especially if they have record label involvement, there is definitely a lot more legality involved, especially when it comes to things like royalties. But for the most part, especially in hip hop, usually if you're paying an artist for a feature, you're going to be the one owning the rights to that master exclusively.
So you own the song and they just get paid for the feature and that's it for most of the time.
It's pretty much like a work for hire, typically. But there's a lot of situations where that's not the case. I mean, there's situations where a lot more savvy artists that have management, or like I said, like record label support, there's involvement where there's split rights and royalties, and it gets a little bit messier. But especially at the independent level, with artists, even if you're buying a feature from an artist with a much bigger fan base than yours, it's usually just, hey, sometimes, a lot of times, there's not even contracts involved, and there should be at least some sort of basic documentation. But it's like, hey, PayPal me this money. Hey, I'll send you this first, and that's usually what it really boils down to. And that's another thing artists mess up on a lot, is they want to make sure that artist is, you want to have a plan in place to promote that release, and you want to make sure that artist is involved with that. Sometimes the most you'll get them to do is, share it on their social networks a few times, but you want something other than just having them on that track. You want to make sure they're also taking some sort of action to put that collaboration.
Using their influence to elevate the song as well too, because that's what you're actually paying for too. It's not just because, okay, this guy's a good rapper, he's written a great verse, but it's not that we can't make good music. Our problem is our reach. We're not getting to an audience that we want the music. So it's their job also, and that should be written into a contract too, that they have to have, if that's the way the artists have done the deal, is it?
I would recommend it. Yeah, I'd recommend having very specific outline details of what the expectations are for both parties. If you have whatever your release strategy or plan is for that single release or that album release, is the artist you're getting the feature from going to be sharing it on which social networks, how many times? Do they have an email list they're sending it to? How much promotional value are they actually adding?
Mm-hmm. And also, the opportunity of getting blog attention with a feature might be pretty big as well. It's not easy to get blog attention, because obviously blogs want views, and they only get views from people that are known. So this is a good opportunity for an artist to get blog attention, and probably links to their website and stuff like that.
Absolutely. A reputable feature combined with a good press campaign strategy and a well-formulated pitch could definitely be something that could help you break through getting coverage on some influential blogs.
Maybe we could get on to when artists should start thinking about charging for features. I know you said there's not like a situation where they go like, oh, grand. But let's say if an artist said, okay, I've built my brand. I think I've built it as best I can. I still have some budget to play with. I've made a lot of music. I'm out there. I'm featured on a lot of blogs. I'm still not to the level that I want to be, but I think I still can start make a living off this. Well, what do you say to artists that are at that level now? What kind of steps do you think they should start taking?
I think there's like a paying dues stage where you're collaborating with tons of people just to get in front of their audience. You're taking on any show you can just to make new fans. But those types of strategies, although I think they can be really beneficial early in an artist's career, should have a very short-lived lifespan. You need to have your steps planned out, your levels of where you're moving up to the point where you're being more selective of the shows you take, you're more selective of the collaborations you make, you're trying to build your own clout and your own authority and your own relevance. And half of that is image. Perception is half of that. It's not that hard to make the perception of your success or your audience online a little bit bigger than it really is.
Yes. So you said that you don't disagree with doing features for free. Maybe at the start do a couple, but don't kind of limit yourself. What do you think? What should you say to artists that have kind of given are giving features away for free? Maybe it's okay at the start, but when do they say, okay, I need to stop this now and actually start charging?
Right. Yeah. I think that could be a very beneficial strategy to use early on in your career, but I think it's important to give it a limited lifespan, because as long as you're publicly collaborating with tons of other artists around the same level as you for free, you're not going to break out of the perception of the artist that does that versus the artist that is sought after and expected to charge for features.
And what do you say to artists that are worried about if they go, okay, I think I should start charging, let's say 800 to 900 for an exclusive feature on a track, but lots of people are kind of giving out about my price is too high. This comes back to kind of business, and sometimes artists are good at making music, they're good at promoting themselves, but they're a little bit scared when it comes to business and charging stuff, because most often not, they're probably making mixtapes free and just getting out there. What you suggest for artists that go, okay, I think this is a figure that I should be okay with, and if they're worried about other people's opinion of that, what you think you should say to them?
I think you should spend a good amount of time really coming up and objectively evaluating yourself to figure out what number you think is appropriate for your career. And I think that's, your own feelings. I think you should weigh and research at similar artists, what they're doing. But if you know that your offer is fair and it's appropriate to the value you add and it's appropriate in relation to what the market expects, you're always going to have those people that are telling you that you're charging too much or that you're, whatever, they're not going to like your terms. But if you have people that are not saying that, if you have people that are willing to pay that and they afterwards feel like the value they received was worth the money they invested, then it shouldn't. I mean, you should focus on that more than the people who disagree with it. If you're at a point where you set a rate and no one's ever willing to pay it, and all you get is negative feedback, I think that's something that you should weigh and reflect on and consider. But at the end of the day, I think you should determine what your offer should be, how much value you have to offer, and I think you should stick to it.
You also say that it's a good idea to go out and get advice from other artists that are actually that little bit step ahead from you. So this may be, if anyone's listening, I'm sure TJ has a consulting service and he'd be happy to help everyone that if they're interested in getting more information after this podcast. But you talk about like maybe if they have some friends that are actually a bit ahead of them in that kind of situation, maybe they should ask for help and go like, what do they do? Like you said, like being cutthroat in this industry is actually, you have to be kind of a little bit headstrong, because you said that it didn't start off perfectly for you and that you had to learn this situation. Do you know what I mean? And if you let emotion into this a little bit too much, you're going to get ripped off. And maybe you just want to talk about that. Maybe I just thought that was kind of interesting what you said there.
Yeah, like especially when it comes to the music industry, everything is negotiable. There's not any rule books, and so I've found, especially working on the business side of the industry and doing things like trying to negotiate features with big artists, or I also work as a talent buyer where I book national touring acts through my city for shows and negotiating guarantees and terms with booking agents. I found out really quickly that people will always ask for more money than they're willing to settle on. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been in a situation where someone told me something was going to cost, $5,000 and it costs half that, or it's going to cost $2,000 and I negotiated it down to half that. And a lot of times, especially the real savvy guys in the music industry that really know what they're doing, they know that most people know that everything is negotiable, and so they'll quote astronomically high so that you try to negotiate a rate that's still way too high, right? They'll try to quote you at $10,000 for something that you should pay $3,000 for, so because they know that you're going to try to wiggle it down to $7,000. You know what I mean? Like those type of scenarios are more common than you think, and so. But you always got to weigh how much bargaining power and clout you hold in a situation too. Yes. I mean, when you're in those types of negotiation situations, those people, a lot of times, even if they'd be willing to settle for a lot lower, won't settle with you because they know that they can still find someone else that will pay that $7,000, even if it's ridiculous. So you need to make sure that you add value in multiple ways outside of just how much you're trying to play. You carry a certain level of expertise, a certain level of clout. You have value outside of just how much money you're willing to play with, in your skill set and in your negotiating skills and in your networking skills and in just your whole package. Your level of clout, and it determines a lot of how much bargaining powers you have in negotiation situations.
And what do you say for artists that are they're at that stage, but they're still a little bit scared as well, and they're just not used to this kind of business sense, and they can't afford a lawyer or something like that, or legal representation? What do you say to artists that like that just go out there and network with other artists in that situation that are used to it, or get advice from someone that has been at that situation before, because obviously lawyer fees can be expensive, but it is kind of at that stage where maybe we do need a lawyer because it's getting to a lot of money now. What actually happened when you were at that stage and you were like, oh, maybe I do need to get legal representation or something like that?
Well, I'll tell you what. I've been in positions where I've dealt with a lot of money in the music industry with transactions. I mean, at least a lot of money to me. $1,000 types of transactions, and I've to this day never hired any kind of legal representation or consultation. I have invested a lot of time into learning legal aspects of the music industry myself, and I have made a lot of mistakes that cost me a lot of money that served as learning experiences. And so I'm not necessarily saying that you shouldn't seek legal counsel, but I mean, you look at respect of, you can look in respect of where I'm at in my career, and it's still something I haven't done, and I don't think it's harmed me that much. Even though I've made some mistakes that probably could have been prevented from outside counsel, but those mistakes were valuable learning experiences for me, and I don't regret not getting the counsel to prevent them from happening. So yeah, there's definitely, especially for situations that require long-term commitments or a lot of money, you really want to be very careful to research and learn as much as you can, and consider seeking outside counsel if necessary.
And just a final point on what we're actually talking about now. You said I like the way you said, like, being cutthroat, so you don't get taken advantage of. But is there like a fine line between being cutthroat and being like, oh, I'm pushing the people that I look to get close to away? What kind of advice would you give there? Like, how good is being cutthroat, and how good is like, oh, I'm building relationships? You know what I mean? It's kind of a sketchy situation. You don't want to get ripped off, but you do want this person in with you, and you know that they actually suit what you're actually trying to promote.
Yeah, I mean, it's just important to find that balance. It's a real skill set, weighing your networking skills and your social ability and your social skills, and learning the art of bargaining and negotiation, and being able to see how much clout and authority you have and what you have to offer, and really feeling them out to seeing what's your limit. You know what I mean? Am I at the point where they're going to choose something else and I just need to settle, or am I at the point where I can keep pushing? And there's tons of resources online. You can just Google articles on, how to make pitches, or how to network, or how to negotiate and bargain. But really, the best way to do it is just combine constant education with constant experience, and then fail a lot and learn from those failures, and don't repeat them.
And you've worked with a lot of artists already. What kind of mistakes do you see over and over again that artists kind of make, and that if you were to give them some advice now, like, oh, this is what I see all the time, just make sure you have these parts already done, what would you say?
Well, yeah, the first thing you want to do, like I said, is get your foundational stuff taken care of. Make sure your branding's on point, your web presence is on point, you have strategy, you have documented plans, you're making music, you have a press kit, you're playing shows, and when you're at the point where you have your career machine moving even early on, and you're ready to start networking those valuable connections that could really quantum leap your career. So you want to target those high value connections, those people that you don't have access to, that if you had a relationship with, could add a lot more value to your career than you could add for them, right? You want to target those people, and then you need to figure out a strategy of how you're going to make that connection. There's a couple ways. One way is getting really good at pitching and making a cold pitch and contacting them. Another way is networking and connection with someone they know, and having yourself get introduced through a mutual connection, which is usually the best way. Cold pitches can be really effective, but you got to be really good at it. And here's the name of the game when it comes to networking those high value connections with those people that have a lot more to offer than you do. Once you've made that connection, you need to figure out how you could authentically add repeated value to them. as much as possible. And you just want to, that's it. You just want to make those connections and add repeated value for them, expecting nothing in return, authentically as much as possible, and then just watch that organically and naturally get reciprocated into bigger value opportunities and connections for you. If you're really good at mastering that technique and figuring out people who can offer more than you, and then figuring out what you can offer them and getting it to them as much as possible, and just watch it naturally reciprocate for you. Watch them leverage their ability to add even more value to you, because a lot of times it's something that doesn't require a lot of effort. I mean, there's people that really have the power to put you in good situations. It's not a lot of effort on their part, and if you've repeatedly added value to their lives or their careers in whatever way, you could see that get reciprocated. A real world example. So I'm an independent artist myself, and I'm also a talent buyer. So I book national acts to perform in my city at big venues. And a big motivation for doing that was that way I can get on shows myself without having to have to lean on another promoter to give me these opportunities. I just create them myself, and then I can put myself on this show. And at the end of the day, I'm getting paid to perform at a show with a big audience and a big national headliner. And I also get the opportunity to network with this big artist. And so there's a lot of value in learning to become a talent buyer yourself. But the point is, so I'm a promoter. There's a booking agent that books a lot of national touring hip hop acts that I've worked with regularly, and I've repeatedly booked packages through this booking agent. I took on some shows that ended up losing me some money to save face with that relationship. But this guy is someone that I've become close friends with. He sleeps on my couch when he travels through town. We spent hours on the phone late at night just talking, just bullshitting, not even talking about business stuff. Even though we had tons of business stuff we should have been talking about. And that relationship has turned into several opportunities for me. I mean, I got off the phone with him a couple days ago, and he was talking about getting me onto like a 40-city tour through Canada with some major headliners, 500 people a night shows. I'd be on the tour bus, have a merch guy, tour manager, the works. And just getting that call and having that opportunity to be something just offered to me is just a natural manifestation of how much time I've spent nurturing that relationship.
Excellent. That's an actual brilliant answer. And I love the way that you actually said that, okay, I lost a bit of money at the start, but I'm still holding out because I know this guy can help me. It's like, okay, it just like, I don't know. I just found like that's a really cool kind of way of doing it. Like, and that you went through the experience, even though it wasn't perfect, but you still have that relationship with that person. And it just shows that not everyone is a bad person because something didn't go right. You know what I mean? Sometimes a lot of people have great intentions. It just doesn't turn out well. And you shouldn't probably just burn the bridge, because it could have been easily for you. You could go like, well, screw this guy. I'm not hanging around. I'm not dealing with him anymore. And it could be the downfall. You probably wouldn't get this show that you're just talking about now. And so you just hung in there. And maybe that's a bit kind of a key lesson in here. Don't be quick to judge people, and kind of really kind of know them before you make decisions. Is that what we're kind of trying to say here too, is that?
Yeah, and you definitely want to master discernment, because there's been similar situations where I've ended relationships with booking agents I was working with because I felt like the terms they were pitching me or the amount of money they're asking for touring packages wasn't reasonable. And so you always got to put yourself in their shoes also. You got to remember that these guys, especially these booking agents, have a lot of pressure from these artists, these large artists they're booking for, to get as much money as possible. And so even if they're authentic, well-intentioned people, they still have a job to do, and their job is to get promoters to pay as much for tour packages as possible. Our job as promoters is to negotiate the best terms that make the most sense for our business as possible. And so, their job is to get the most money out of us. Our job is to negotiate, the least money possible. And so you always got to understand that there's that friction and difference of what's going on, even if someone is authentic and genuine. You got to be able to discern and weigh your judgment of character on which situations are worth your time and which ones aren't.
I love this topic. I just really found this very interesting. I'm glad that you wrote on Music Think Tank. I hope you kind of keep putting articles out there and keep working on your blog. I think we'll end the interview there, but maybe just before we end that, how can people that have listened to the show get in contact you for consultations about your services? Is it just go to mineundermohawk.com, or would you prefer to be contacted at Twitter or something like that? It's up to you.
I would love for people to connect with me on both Facebook or Twitter. I'm on both. My website is mindundermohawk.com. From there, from the homepage, you could either join my email list to get free articles and resources, or you can fill out a form to contact me if you're interested in working with me. I do, like I said, web and brand design services. I do copywriting services, and I do consultation services. So if you're interested in any of those, just go to mindundermohawk.com, click an orange button right there on the page. It says work with me, and that will take you to the form to begin the process.
Excellent. TJ, it was actually brilliant to actually have you on the podcast, man. Anyone that's listening to the podcast right now, don't worry, there's going to be a blog post to this with links to TJ's website and to the articles that we're talking about in this. And I please urge people to follow him on social media or follow him at his website, because I guarantee you this guy can help you. And I just think that just from this article alone that he's got great information and he's got great experience. And TJ, it was brilliant to bring you on the podcast. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. And I'd love to actually have you back on again. Maybe we could talk about something different next time.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I would love to do that. And thank you for having me. I had a great time.
No problem, man. Excellent, guys. This is Dan from the Corporate Beats. You were just listening to Mixtape Marketing Podcast. That was the interview with TJ Bear from mindundermohawk.com. And that was episode 14, Buying and Selling Rap Features. Thanks, TJ. See you again.